you spoke about easy, my grandmother, the person that you want to serve, but that brings us actually back to the identity topic, right? Is it my grandmother, the actual person who's on the other side of the phone, who's trying to talk with their bank, right? You spoke about AI and all the speed and innovation that AI brings to us in a positive way, let's say. But of course, we know that there's a dark side of artificial intelligence, which we saw some examples on deep fake and so on. But of course, fundamentally, fraudsters and ways of attacking users are evolving at the speed of AI in many ways. How do you build trust between your financial institution and the user? Because we've seen some stats that 67% of users, once they are victim of a fraud, they would tend to leave their financial institution, right? Even if it wasn't the responsibility of the financial institution, but still the effect of a user is, hey, I'm trusting you with my money, right? So how do you build that trust between your users and your bank from day one into every day?
Sure. I'll start off with something interesting. I just came back from a leadership offsite the past couple of days, right? And the instructor of that couple of days session, he started by asking, who here give trust by default? Or who here needs the trust to be earned? Right? Based on data, it's usually about 50-50, right? So some people trust an app, some people trust a bank by default because it's a bank, it's regulated, right? I'm sure they are compliant. But to the other segment of customers, that's where trust needs to be earned. If I'm putting a penny in your bank, you need to be able to demonstrate to me how you are able to do it, the A to the Z, right? So I think it's a lot to unpack here. Maybe starting off with the brand itself. The brand itself tells a lot about the company, about the culture, right? And who is behind it, so on and so forth. So say, for example, at GXBank, obviously we are backed by Grab and Singtel, right? And in Malaysia as well, Quark, right? So all of these are big brands that you have all heard, right? Not just in Malaysia, but regionally, globally. So that's one to start with. Who are then the people that's running the bank? Which is why it's also important in terms of reputation, right? Then the next one comes when you launch the app. When the very first time you walk into a branch in olden days, how are you greeted? What's your first experience and touch point with the branch, at the branch? And right now is then in the app, right? And to this, the very first journey as a customer comes to us, right, is that we will go through an onboarding, right? So for onboarding for us, which is why we actually picked Entrust as well, right, as our partner, because of its brand, right? How Entrust and back then Onfido, right, is also a brand that is recognized by the regulator, right? Is something that B&M has tested through. So therefore, that gives everybody, starting from the regulator, that's the assurance that you guys are able to give, right? Will customers know Entrust? Maybe not exactly, because you guys do a B2B, right? But now that it's embedded within us, what's next? How do you actually carry your onboarding and your eKYC journey, right? So asking customers to do step A, step B, step C, how's the experience, how's the speed, is there any glitches, I submitted my grandma's face and it passed through, right? So it goes down to details like that in terms of your capabilities and reliability, right? But I will go very far out and say it starts with the brand itself.
Thanks a lot. And when you start building that journey, first of all, thanks a lot for the call out of the of the collaboration. The question is, part of that journey is, of course, centered around a biometric element, right? One thing that you always carry with you is fundamentally yourself, your face, right? Are you seeing users adopting the biometric element? If we look at the global scenario, identity is very, very regional, right? If you take, I cover the whole globe effectively with AMER, EMEA, and APAC, and I see very different approach by state, by culture, by profile. So I'm really interested, of course, in this region, not only in Malaysia specifically, but in the region that you operate in. Is the biometric element something that is A, accepted, and B, kind of expected as a way to prove and to secure your relationship and build that trust with your financial institution?
Sure, yeah. I think maybe two folds to this, right? First, agree, there will be locations, different parts of the world that probably carries and are more sensitive towards like data privacy, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, I think Malaysians are less careful with overall data, like so-called biometric, right, or just general like data privacy. But it's also not new to us, thanks to a lot of different technologies as we went from web to mobile, right? Your devices today are all verifying your biometric already. When you first get your very first device, right, the different OS will ask you to do a different biometric checks and so on, right? So all of these is really happening. So it's not new to any one of us. So going back to the question specifically, I think Malaysians, and even to the extent where this region, Southeast Asia, we are generally all quite comfortable, right, to do a biometric scanning, right? And it's just not something new and uncommon.
Okay. Well, you mentioned regulators being part of the game, and that's very much true, right? As a financial institution, you need to navigate all the different regulation, all the different approach, always staying up to speed with the compliance requirement, new trends, and new things pushed by the regulators. We heard this morning about shifting from SMS-based to any other means, biometric being one of those, of course. There's another trend that is coming and taking adoption is all the EID and digital identities in general that are used to prove that you are who you're saying you are. On in alternative or bringing in also the other means, but how are you seeing the adoption of these schemes? And I guess one of the question is, are these while going in the right direction? Are these enough? Is it coming with some challenges? Also, the adoption of these EID schemes.
Sure. I think starting by saying that, thankfully, BNM is progressive on this front, right? Why I say that is because, as I mentioned briefly earlier, I came from incumbent banks myself, right? The more traditional ones. And is eKYC entirely new in the industry? No. It's really here for many, many years, right? But I guess for digital bank, we really onboard a customer not having met them, in this case his grandma, right, in real life, like ever, right? We have never met his grandma to be able to know this is her my card, assuming if she's a Malaysian, right, with a fingerprint, so on and so forth. So we have zero. We started from zero. So it was very challenging to be able to carry that conversation with B&M, having launched the very first rocket that's able to do end-to-end onboarding in like 4 minutes, right? So to be able to put forward all the different justifications, whether it's sufficient, what is not sufficient, what is accuracy, so it was difficult, right? So imagine if you launch a rocket ever back then when no one has ever done it, it was difficult to convince. Because if I'm correct, most banks in the past do it only for largely existing to bank customers, whereby I've seen this grandma before, right, in the lifetime, right? And then subsequently, as you go to a digital platform, I'm able to do some eKYC on you, given all the different information and data points I have about this customer. But for us, as I said, it's really from zero. So to begin with, it wasn't easy. So that is where all the different capabilities come in. Yeah, I'll just segue to a second area where we talk about digital ID. Because in Malaysia today, we do have a national digital ID called My Digital ID, right? But it has yet to reach a certain extent where it's scaled throughout the country, right? I believe it's just a matter of time and being pushed forward, right? But maybe let's take a look at other countries. India, for example, right? I think that's Aadhaar. Closer to us, Singapore, for example, there is SingPass. But I'm not sure if you guys know, but even in very developed countries, like first world countries like Singapore, where there is a national digital identity, there is still a lot of mule accounts. There's still a lot of identity spoofing, right? So on the ground, that's where customers actually sell their identities, right? So even though I have my SingPass, my info, I'm willing to sell it to you, right? To open an account. So is national digital identity alone sufficient? I think it's for us to think about. Or do we need to be able to strengthen the whole suite of services to be able to identify customers, right? And that is based on the respective banks, because technically that is still not regulated depending on the countries today.
Thank you. I want to go back to the identity topic and that build of relationship and trust between your bank, your brand, and your users. Is that something that scales? Is that something that becomes a growth enabler for you, having a trusted identity, as you mentioned before, from day one, even day zero? You mentioned the brand itself, to whatever current and future financial services you can give to your users.
Sure. I think maybe let's take two lenses. The first lens from a good actor perspective, all right? So customers download GXBank app from App Store, Play Store, launch the app, right? Trying to onboard in 4 minutes. You get, depending on who and how the experience is, right? But overall, that's where the journey has started. If in this case you let in a good customer, a customer that genuinely wants your product and solutions, right? I think it's important at that point of time, whether you manage to acquire the customer or the drop-off has happened. That's already the beginning of the business growth, right? If it ended there, that's it. The customer is going to the other bank probably, right? So that is in the eyes of a good actor. Now let's take a look at a bad actor. So if it's not done right from the very beginning, so imagine this is in the physical world, you would have opened the door, allowed the thief to go in to the bank, right? Open the vault, here's the money, right? So I guess what we have also done differently from that perspective is where there needs to be multiple different touch points where we do all of these risk checks. Obviously, onboarding is only the very first gate, right? And then you have all your name screenings, your CRAs, right? Your transaction monitoring, your transaction signing, so on and so forth. What we do differently at the point where customers, in that case, the thief, who has now access to the vault, the physical vault, right, broke through and so on, right, trying to take the money out, that's where we will do step-up authentication. I think we were the first, right, in the market to actually do a actual selfie authentication, right? Not just a regular Face ID, fingerprint ID, right? So at the point of time, that's where we step up again, only for high-risk transactions, asking customer to tell me, hey, you say the money in the vault is yours, prove it to me.
So every day, like not every day, but at the risky moment, let's say.
Correct, yeah. So that's where we will do is step-up authentications to very specific, and we do it dynamically, of course, right? Not to every customer, like, tell me this is you, tell me this is you, right? But those that look suspicious, right? Coming from different locations, using VPN, transaction volume is high, transaction value is high, right? The last moment you were withdrawing money at Johor, right? The next minute you're at KL, for example, right? So step-up authentication will happen, right? And that's where we do all these MFA checks. And yeah, I think things like that from a biometric standpoint is also very important.